Hello, my name is Michael Timmons. I am the author of the Lycanwar Saga and the Shards of the Covenant series. I'm also the organizer for the Writer's Block Author Fair that's held here in Toledo. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different than I normally do. I'm not going to talk about writing or publishing or my books. I'm actually going to do a review of episode 1 of The Wheel of Time. Now the reason why I'm doing this is that Wheel of Time for me was the first real epic book series that I ever read. I loved it. I devoured each book as they came out, and like many of you, I had to wait years for each book to come. I think I started reading when I want to say The Shadow Rising was out, and so then after that, I pretty much had to wait each time. Each time a new book would come out, and I would devour it up. So I love the series. It's one of my favorite of all times, and when they decided to make a television series on it, I was super happy. But of course, like many of you, very worried that they weren't going to do it right. Now, for the couple of years before they actually went from announcing it to actually releasing it, I kept up with the news. I followed all the developments, the cast member leaks, the script leaks, everything I could, all the photos that were released, the trailer, I love the trailer. I really followed what was going on. I listened to Rafe Jenkins, the showrunner, and he was a super fan, so I really trusted that he understood the material and that he was going to do it right. Even though Brandon Sanderson, said that they were going to make some changes, some of the changes we'd like, some of the changes we didn't like, I still felt that the heart of the story, the important parts of the story would get told in the show. I have to say, I was disappointed. I did enjoy the show as a show, but I didn't enjoy it as an adaptation for the books. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play some of the show. I'm going to talk about certain parts of it and tell you what I think and why I think it worked or why it didn't work. There is going to be spoilers during this whole video, because I am going to be talking about plot points that will manifest itself throughout the whole series from the Eye of the World to the Memory of Light. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I would suggest coming back when you finish reading all the series, and we'll talk some more about. I'm going to do a review of each episode. So, well, here we go.
The world is broken. Many, many years ago, men who were born...
Now this opening scene, they have Moiraine here getting dressed and talking about the breaking of the world.
When they failed, the seas boiled. Mountains were swallowed up.
What I don't like about this is that they changed the story behind the breaking of the world just a little bit. They blamed it mainly on the arrogance of the men, which in part, yes, it was, but it was more desperation. Lewis Theron, he felt like he didn't have a choice. He went to the female Aes Sedai. They refused him to help him, tried to lock away the Dark One, and because of that, he failed. So, it was arrogant believing that maybe he could still do it without the female Aes Sedai, but really, if anyone is to blame, honestly, it would probably be the female Aes Sedai. If they had joined him and helped him seal the bore, lock away the Dark One, then they might have succeeded, or at least succeeded and kept him in prison for a lot longer, but they chose not to. So I don't like the changing the story to kind of blame it more on the men. Now, of course, this could be an unreliable narrator type situation, where this is what the Aes Sedai, the female Aes Sedai's history that they have passed down, and it's not actually the history actually as it was. Although, as we find out in, I believe, episode 8 or 7 during the cold open. It is kind of the way that they explain it. And it's kind of loose there, and it's arrogance believing he could do it, and he didn't need help.
Cities burned, and the women of the Aes Sedai were left.
Now here they show the Moiraine's Aes Sedai ring. I don't care for the Aes Sedai ring. I know a lot of people said it was really kind of cool looking. To me, it is chunky, gaudy, and I don't know, with the stone being by each color, I understand that it helps people recognize them, but honestly, who really needs to recognize them? I mean, most of the Aes Sedai kind of know, which color other people are, because they deal with them all the time, and there's really not that many of them. Plus, as they chose for the show, they all dress in the colors of their Aja, so I mean, why need the ring to show the color like that? I guess for the viewer it helps, but they don't really explain it till later anyway, so I don't know what was the point of it, to be honest with you. I think it was a bad choice to make.
To pick up the pieces. These women.
I know, yeah, obviously you can't see the video, and I apologize for that. I couldn't get it to broadcast onto my screen and be able to see it like that, but here they show the sangreal that we find later in episode 8. So here that it's to help increase the power of Rand's one power so that he can defeat the Dark One. But they just show it, they don't explain it, they don't give you any clue as to what it is, and they ignore it for 7 episodes, which I don't really understand why they did that. It was something they could have shown later, maybe episode 4, episode 5, and actually talked about it, introduced it, just briefly. It didn't need to take a whole lot of time, but they could have taken some time and actually done it.
And remembered one thing above all else. The man who brought the breaking of the world.
Now, one thing I will say that I do love is the attention to detail on the clothing. I think that all of the garments that people wear, all the uniforms, all of the clothing, look very realistic, authentic to what I would believe people would be wearing during that time. And it looks really good. It's gorgeous. It really is.
And him they named Dragon. Now this man has been born again. We don't know where or to whom, if he was reborn as a girl or a boy.
Now, obviously, there was a lot of controversy on this, as everybody knows who's read the books, that the whole Dragon Reborn idea is that it is a man, because only a man wields the male half of the true source and the one power, and because of that, he can go mad and destroy the world. That's the prophecy. There's no confusion as about whether it could be a male or a female. Now, obviously they wanted to keep this a mystery for the show, and I get that. It did add a lot of interest. People wanted to know, if it was Egwene, if it was Rand, if it was Perrin, if it was Nynaeve. Nobody knew. They were all guessing, which added hype to the show, which I get. However, what they could have done is they could have used vague pronouns, like, we don't know who they are or where they are. And that would have solved the problem. And that would have also left it a mystery. And that. Now, what I will say about this whole thing is that I don't agree with this cold open to start with. It would have been better to show the prologue to the Eye of the World, to give you some sense of what happened, why it happened, and where the real danger is. The cold open here it does introduce you to the concept of the breaking, but it doesn't do a very good job. And why I say they should have done it this way is because the whole idea of even mentioning the Dragon Reborn to start with, I think was a bad choice. The choice in the book to keep it vague that the Darkwood minions are after the three boys, and Moiraine kind of hedging on that she didn't know why they were searching for him, that they were just in danger and that they needed to get out of the village, I think would have been a better choice because it would create two mysteries. Just like in the books. One, which of the three it was. Now, obviously, it was not as confusing in the books because we got most of the stuff from Rand's perspective to start with. So we kind of knew that Rand was the main character and he was the focal point and the one they were searching for. But in the show, since they were doing it from different perspectives, we wouldn't know. We would be unsure as to which one the Dark One was hunting and why they were hunting it. It would have created two mysteries for the show, which I think would have been a better choice.
The only thing we know for certain is that this child is coming of age now, and we must find them before the dark does.
Now here we go into the second cold open. This is the chase scene where the Red Aja is chasing a male channeler. Most people that I know that watched this did not enjoy this cold open. They thought it was very... it was pointless. Especially if they'd gone with the original prologue to the book, then they could have avoided showing... needing to show this, to letting you know that there's madness that's caused by the men using the one power. Introducing the Red Aja and their desire to hunt men who can channel, they could have easily dealt with in episode 3 like they do, which I think it would have been a better choice. I mean, we do get introduced to Liandrin, and she is a great character throughout this first season so far. Really enjoy her character. She's an interesting villain, I'll say the least. I did not like the way they didn't really explain what was going on, what the Red Aja actually did with the man at the end. It was very vague, and I don't know. I didn't care for it. Then I'll jump ahead here to when Lan and Moiraine are discussing where they'll go next, the two rivers.
There are rumors of Fort Taviran there.
I can't say how much I dislike this whole idea. Rumors of Fort Taviran. This is wrong way to handle this on two levels. First, as a book reader, Taviran wasn't even something that Moiraine really discussed. It was something that Loyal, discovered about the boys, that they were Taviran, and that the wheel, moves around them, swirls around them, and events happen because of who they are and where they are. So, it's not a common knowledge thing, and the idea that there would be rumors of Fort Taviran from this town that is kind of in the backwater area of Andor is, I don't know, to me it's just improbable and very stupid. And then on the second level, for the show, they bring it up to Taviran. They don't explain what it is, and they don't address it for the rest of the show, which to me is just, why did you even bring it up? It wasn't even necessary at this point. It would have been much better to have Loyal discuss it later, do the info dump of actually explaining what it is in a conversation, so it wasn't really an info dump, and that would have not only answered the people who are first-time watchers answer their questions about what Taviran was and how it mattered to anything, but it also would have done a better job of dealing with it for the book readers.
All the right age. The old blood runs deep in those mountains.
I will say they do a very good job of Moiraine and Lan's chemistry, the way that they discuss things. Lan does an excellent job. Daniel Honey is a really good Lan, and he says what he needs to say, and he doesn't elaborate. He just straightforward, makes his opinion known, and in the end, though, Moiraine is the one that makes the decisions, and he abides by it, and I like that, the way that they showed that, the chemistry.
Let's hope it's prepared them for what's coming.
Now, right after that, we see this wide shot of what I guess would be the Two Rivers Valley, or at least around where they're heading, and some of the rock formations look like skyscrapers, and I kind of sort of understand why they wanted to do this, that they wanted to show that there was a world before the breaking that had extremely tall buildings, and they look really cool, but now they're overgrown by rock and foliage and the like. But I really got a Shannara television series feel from this, which I didn't like in that, and I don't like it in this. There's very few mentions of buildings from that time that still exist. I mean, there's buildings from the Trolloc War era, but the Trolloc War just decimated a lot of areas, and then the breaking destroyed so much, and they really don't talk about it in the book. And I once again, I think it was too early to even kind of show this type of thing. And while it looked beautiful, as most of the views in this show they all look really beautiful and stunning. It just, I don't know, it was out of place for me. It just, and like I said, it felt like something from Shannara, and I didn't particularly care for it. And from here, we're going to lead into the Women's Circle ceremony, which they take the time to kind of show the landscape and some beautiful scenery as the women walk to where they're going to do the ceremony. There's a very touching part here between Nynaeve and Egwene, which I thought was really nice, talking about what it means to be a woman. And this happens off screen in the books, but it was nice. It was nice to see. It did add a little depth and dimension to the village and the ceremonies, a little bit of the traditions, which I thought was really nice. Now, the part where they toss Egwene off the cliff, while it was funny and kind of interesting, I can't help but wonder how many women actually died from that and not able to recover in the water like Egwene was. But I guess maybe they have precautions. They have people that are by the river that are able to help them out. From there, we join Rand and his dad, Tam, as they travel down the mountain, bringing the ale to Beltane. Beautiful scenery. Obviously, the mountains and the path there.
How'd you get the wood to town? Carried it. And we burned it. Let's stay down.
I did like this part. It did show a nice relations between Tam and Rand as they talk about how they did things back in the Rand was younger, and now he used to pine for Egwene, and it was just a cute little scene. It reminded me of the book as they discussed that. I did miss the part where they do see the Fade, or Rand sees the Fade. I think that would have added some mystery and some suspense to the show, but I realized, they were dealing with limited time and limited funds, which I get. I understand that. So while it would have been nice to see, I think it was okay that they skipped it. From there, we move into the Two Rivers, which I'm not really sure why they decide to change the name Edmund's Field to Two Rivers. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, but as they show the scenes of the town in Two Rivers, I think it's lovely. It's the fact that they built this village up from scratch, and the buildings look great. They did an excellent job. It is amazing and really realistic looking, and I love the attention to detail. I love the people walking around. It looked really good. And the Wine Spring Inn, not how I imagined it, but wow, absolutely stunning, absolutely beautiful. Just a beautiful building, and it looks really nice. They did a really good job with it.
The Cottons and Hongers were worried you might be without apples round this bell time.
From here, we go inside the White Spring Inn, and this is where Egwene enters. Oh, sorry, take that back. This is where we get introduced to Matt, Rand, and Perrin as their friendship.
Thank you all very much for bearing with me tonight.
We also get introduced with Matt's propensity to bet, which I understand a little bit of complexity to Matt, and where a lot of complexity was lacking in the books. I'm not sure I agree with this choice. I mean, it's okay to have him as a gambler and someone who loses money, but I kind of like the aspect of that being introduced later. I think they could have done something else. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what would have worked better, but I don't know. I think they could have handled it a little bit differently, done something a little different with him. It works for the most part. I'm not sure I'd like it.
I can't imagine it's been easy to part with all your money, but...
And clearly he doesn't have a whole lot of luck when it comes to gambling. And then here we also see where he ends up going for Dana. And we find out later that he's going to steal her bracelets.
How are you? Are the girls? You can spot me. One guy. Three of us. Old time safe, eh?
They also speak of, war and Gildan, which I like the touch where they, obviously this is a common room of an inn. They're going to be talking about things that are happening out throughout the world and rumors that are coming in. So I like the fact that they mentioned that. And then obviously in, I believe episode 4, we see why that's being talked about. We see the war on Gildan. We find out that it's from Mogaine, the false dragon, and so it's an interesting little tidbit that they talk about, and like I said, it adds dimension to the world building and really helps get you an idea of the scope of what's going on in the world.
About what? You're married. Your life's over.
And then from here,
tiding over Egwene, cold in the mountains.
we go to Egwene coming in after the little circle. Everybody's clapping and everybody's excited. One choice I didn't like here is Bran, her father, kind of being so concerned about earning money and that they're losing money if she's not helping. Bran is a great character in the book. He's stalwart, he's honorable, he's the mayor of the town, and I don't know, they just handled him very poorly here. I don't like their choice of narrative with him. I like him better as the person in the books. I mean, he's not an important character, so ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, but I didn't see the need to make him out to be like this. I think he's better as he is, as he was in the book. There we go into evening, where we have Rand being Rand as he sulks in a corner, wanting to know what is going on with Moiraine, and Moiraine's kind of avoiding him, or not avoiding him, I don't know. She kind of is, because she doesn't want to talk about the fact that Nynaeve offered her to be trainers of wisdom, and that she's actually considering it, so she really doesn't want to talk to him about it, because she doesn't want to hurt him. It was nice. It was this nice little interaction, and it showed Rand being Rand, which, that's kind of how he is in the book, so I like the trueness of character in that. And then we have Perrin approaches Rand, and they talk about what's going on with the Queen and the ceremony, and how they hadn't talked, and Perrin just like, well, she's probably busy, and just being there as a friend, which is really nice. Shows their dynamic and their friendship, which I liked. Then we kind of get into the scene here where Lan enters the inn. This scene itself, from here, honestly, into the end of this scene, I don't like. I know I like a lot of people say, well, it shows Nynaeve being Nynaeve, and she's fiercely protective of the town. Her dialogue in this, show yourself, stranger, or name yourself, stranger, or whatever she asked him to do. It's clunky. It just doesn't sound good. And who does that? I mean, this is an inn. I realize they're not close, to a lot of other towns, but it's an inn. So I'm guessing they probably do get people who pass through, and why is she accosting them? Does she accost everybody that shows up there at the inn in such a manner? It just does not seem very friendly, and I don't know. I didn't think it was right for her character, in my opinion. That's my opinion. And then while he just stands there by the door with the door open, not saying anything, and I don't know, just like waiting to announce Moiraine. It was over dramatic, and I didn't see the point to it. It didn't play out really well, honestly. I mean, let's be honest. Now, one thing I will mention right now, the inside of the inn, it looks phenomenal, especially the fireplace, that huge fireplace that they have there. Absolutely gorgeous, super cool. I love, they really did a good job of showing an inside of an inn and giving it life and making it believable, a lot more than I've seen of other shows, so I will give them props for that. Now, another thing that happens in the scene is we have Moiraine enter, and she flashes her ring, and everybody's like, ooh, Aes Sedai, Aes Sedai. How she handles herself in the books, by not acknowledging that she's Aes Sedai, but keeping it secret, I think it plays out so much better. It kind of gives the audience a feeling of whether or not they can trust her, both as the book reader and as a viewer, because as the viewer would know more than actually the people in the book did, that she's Aes Sedai and she's keeping it secret from these people. You kind of get to wonder, like, she's being dishonest, she's not telling the truth about who she is, and she's there in secret. Why is she there in secret? What is she looking for? It just would have added an extra element there. They didn't have to play on it as long as they did in the book, but I think it would have been better if she had nobody had known that she was Aes Sedai, but then she came out and later, like she does in the episode, and fights off the Trollocs, I think would have been a nice feature, especially if they had talked about Aes Sedai up a little bit, mentioned how untrustworthy they were, or that, there's some suspicion. I think would have added a lot more so that when she did reveal herself, fighting off the Trollocs, there would still be some of that feeling of, can we trust her? We don't know if we can. I think that would have been a better way to handle it. And like I said, her flashing her ring is like, I'm Aes Sedai, and I don't know. It was just very clunky and just seemed very silly and unnecessary. I did not like this scene at all. I think this scene could have been handled so much better. Now, here we go to the Forge, where we see Perrin's wife, which obviously most people have talked about this as being pretty controversial, that he has a wife. And that they fridge her, that they kill her off. Now, this is not classic fridging. If you don't know what fridging is basically killing, usually the wife, to motivate the hero to go on a journey or go and get revenge. It's a motivation to move them forward in the story. While they do kill the wife, actually Perrin kills his wife, they don't really use that as a motivation for him to go anywhere, to accomplish anything. If anything, it's more of just a way to give Perrin nothing to hold on to him to keep him in the village. So it's not classic fridging, but it kind of is. Which I know a lot of people hate fridging, and I don't know. For me, I've always looked at it as the love between a husband and a wife is one of the strongest loves that there is, and the death of someone who you really love, and as an adult, you're, especially if it's a younger adult who may not have kids yet, they're just in marriage, it can be a driving force. It changes your life, and maybe that's lazy writing to use that as the method, that there are other ways to get but I think it really does resonate with the reader, and they read it and they say, yeah, wow, if my wife was killed or my husband was killed, I could see why that person would end up doing the things that they do. So, excuse me, I gotta take a drink. So, while fridging is a little cliche, I really don't have a problem with it. It doesn't really bother me. My biggest problem here was the fact that they had Perrin have a wife. I don't think that was, as the narrative of the books going forward, when he meets Fael. I mean, he's going to meet Fael in a year, roughly, from this point there, and he's going to fall in love with her over the next couple of months. So, he's going to go from having a wife that he killed accidentally, but in a rage, and then a year from now, he's going to be okay to meet someone else and fall in love. To me, it's a really hard sell to move him forward from this point, and I think that, as was suggested by Brandon Sanderson, that maybe killing Mr. Luhan would have been a better choice. His mentor, his trainer, or his master, where he's an apprentice. I know obviously they made him a little bit older, so maybe he wouldn't still be an apprentice to a blacksmith, but he could have been, he could have worked the forge with Master Luhan. He doesn't have to necessarily be an apprentice, but he could be a journeyman easily. I don't know. It just, to me, it was an unnecessary addition, and, you're killing this person who will no longer have any place in the story moving forward other than to cause Perrin some turmoil, which he only talks about one other time later with Egwene in episode 2 or 3. I can't remember which one it is, and that's it. He doesn't discuss it again. So, as devastating as it would have been, it really does not cause him the devastation that it should have. It didn't resonate with him, other than his choice to try to be nonviolent, which, I don't know. Not sure that really worked for what happened. So, and here also we kind of add that element of she's upset with him. She didn't go to Egwene's ceremony. Is there something going on between him and Perrin and Egwene? Does he love her? Does he care about her? Is she jealous? We don't really know. They don't explain it, but they imply that there's something going on, that the marriage is not well. They also imply that maybe she's pregnant. I don't know. There was a lot of implications here that they didn't go anywhere with. So it was an added thing to the story that didn't work and didn't need to be added. Now, from here, we go to finding Matt and finding his mom as she watches her husband, Matt's dad, flirting with some woman in the village green. We get introduced to this whole dynamic of Matt's family basically being a bunch of a-holes, at least his parents being a-holes, especially the mom and the dad. They're not huge characters in the book, so this deviation from the actual story in the book, it's not horrible. It does add something to Matt's background, his story, but here's where I have the problem with this. You've put Matt into a situation where his parents are crap. He has 2 little sisters that he obviously cares for, will do just about anything for. And then, obviously, to keep them safe, he leaves the 2 rivers with the rest of the group. Makes perfect sense. He doesn't want to bring them any harm. He wants to keep them safe. Tam says that people will be, watching out for the girls to keep them, safe and in the custody of the parents. But this is where it doesn't work, because later on, when the 2 rivers is threatened again, it's Perrin who comes back to the 2 rivers to help save the 2 rivers. Matt never wants to go back. I mean, he talks about missing it and that, but he can't see himself ever going back, and he never does. He never once goes back in the books to visit the 2 rivers again. Now, if you have 2 younger sisters that are with crap parents that you feel responsible for, how are they going to handle that? Is he just going to forget about his sisters as the story progresses? They're not going to mention it again? We're going to pretend like they don't exist? Or what? I mean, I don't understand how they not bring Matt back to the 2 rivers if he cares so much about his sisters. I just don't see how they could do that. I mean, it's a nice touch. Like I said, it adds story to it, and it does add background, and Matt is really underdeveloped in the books, so I get that it works, but I don't know. To me, it just having the 2 sisters is going to be a problem later on, because you're just not giving Matt a reason to stay away from the 2 rivers. He's going to want to go. He should, if he cares as much about his sisters as they portray in this show, then he should want to go back once the immediate threat is gone from the 2 rivers. Now from here we go back into the inn. They're discussing about Aes Sedai. They're discussing about the war on Gildan, how it's not important to them. And then we also then move into the scene between Rand and Egwene, where they talk about the ceremony. Egwene doesn't want to reveal anything about it, and then they have sexy time, which I get they're older. I do kind of miss the naivety of the boys in the show. I did like that innocence, the way it played. As the story progresses, and they move more into an adult type scenarios with older people that they just don't really know how to handle it, and I think that is endearing and cute. But I know they wanted to up their age, which I totally get. I understand. It's fine. Like I said, I just as a personal note, as a book reader, I kind of miss that naivety, that innocence of the boys. So just a personal preference of mine, but it's fine. It works fine.
War is just fools getting up.
Also, the interaction between Egwene and Rand is cute. It's nice. It's very sweet, and it does give you a feeling that that they have a relationship and they've been together, and obviously that they've had sex, and even though it's in their parents' common room with the parents upstairs, it seems a little like ballsy, but whatever. I guess it works. Here we move into the infamous bathtub scene with Moiraine and Lan. That's a nice little scene. That it does show a kind of relationship where they can, an adult relationship where they can be together, naked, and there's no obvious sexual tension, any sexual energy there. It's just like a man and a woman just hanging out in the tub naked together as they discuss, what's going on. Although, admittedly, it just seemed kind of an odd time to just take a bath when they're worried that the Fades and the Trollocs are in the area. But I mean, they did have a long travel there, so they need their rest and relaxation, I guess. From there, we go to seeing Rand and Egwene after they have sex, and Egwene explains that Nynaeve has offered her a position as wisdom. She says that she's not, she hasn't said yes or no, but you kind of get the impression that she's really considering it, and that's probably the direction she's going to go. And she's just afraid to tell him. And it's done really well. It's acted really well. The dialogue here is done really well. It does give you the impression that Egwene's holding something back, that Rand knows it, but they're not talking about it. So, which is pretty normal. Then we get introduced to the Fade. First we have Egwene. She kind of senses something's not right. She feels dread. Good foreshadowing. We hear the whistle, which after we move from the Fade, see the Fade, we keep the whistling as we move into Pen and Fane. This is very subtle. It was very nice. Obviously, for those who read the book, we know that Pen and Fane brought the Fades and the Trollocs to the Trueverse to let them know to capture Rand or the boys, and so it was a nice little segue. And obviously, the Fade looks super cool. I do hope we get to hear one talk later instead of just being this menacing leech mouth type face. It would be nice to see one more, especially without a hood, so we can see its whole white skinned face and head without the eyes. I think would be really cool. Like I said, we move from this into getting introduced to Pen and Fane. Whistling, just like we just heard. Now, Pen and Fane, the actor for this, really good. I love the way he looks. He just looks... He's probably one of the best actor choices I think in the show. He just, to me, he radiates Pen and Fane. now, of course, later I'll talk about Pat and Fane. We'll deal with him later in some of the other episodes, and what I think they did right and what I think they did wrong, as far as the book goes. But for now, we just get a brief glimpse of him, and then we have his interaction with Matt, and then we find out that Matt stole the bracelets. But he stole the bracelet so that he could sell it to Pat and Fane so he could get the lanterns for his sisters, which obviously really nice and sweet that he did that, though it would be nice if he didn't steal. Now, from what I understand from the leaked script, the original script, he didn't actually steal the bracelet. Him and Dana have sex, and the bracelet gets dropped into the mud, and Matt finds it. Now, he doesn't return it, obviously. He tries to sell it, but I think that actually would have been a little bit better. I mean, while he did, steal the bracelet to help out his sisters, he still stole it, but if they had done the script, it would have been less stealing and more of like finders keepers. But I mean, that's still not good. It's still not right, but at least it would have been less shady as actually stealing it, in my opinion. So after that, we kind of see Moiraine and Lan wandering around
You
town.
didn't sleep last night.
They talk about
You think one of the
whether
eyeless is already here?
the eyeless is there. Lan doesn't say anything, but Moiraine kind
Then
of
we both
senses that.
have work to do today.
Yep, definitely he thinks the eyeless is still there. Then we move into seeing Rand up on the mountain. Beautiful. Scenery's beautiful, obviously. And Egwene goes to speak to him. They have this nice little exchange where she admits that she has decided to be the wisdom, and that Rand, he already knew. He already understood. And he's, while they're both hurt at the fact that she's choosing this, which means that they probably won't ever be together as a husband and wife, because wisdom apparently seldom marries, or never marries, that even though it pains them both, he accepts that's her choice, and it's a nice little mature conversation that they have here. I mean, even though Rand does kind of react later in a little bit of bitterness and says some things that he probably shouldn't in episode 2, or even later episodes, this conversation is really sweet. And a lot of people say, well, while here he's accepting, but later he acts like an ass. That's how people are. I mean, it's pretty realistic. Sometimes, even though they will say that they accept it and maybe feel like they actually do accept it, it still hurt, and they still may have some bitterness, and it may, even though they don't want it to creep out, it may still creep out. Sometimes we just say things we don't mean to say, and so that's just the way of it. So it was nice. Here, after that, we move to seeing Nynaeve and Moiraine's interaction. I know a lot of people like this scene because it shows Nynaeve as being fierce, and that she is strong, and also that they're having these two separate conversations where Moiraine's trying to figure out how old she is, to figure out if she is maybe the Dragon Reborn, which of course she couldn't be regardless, but that's how they did it for the show. But so they're trying to figure out if she's the right age for the Dragon Reborn, and Nynaeve thinks that Moiraine is questioning her ability to do the job as wisdom, that she's saying that she's too young, which is reminiscent of the book, that Nynaeve is constantly fighting against that viewpoint that everybody thinks that she's too young to do her job, and that's where her anger and her fierceness comes from, is this, that she's capable, and that she's angry at everybody for not thinking that she's capable. It has her her lack of self-assurance, but as it manifests into an abrasive and aggressive attitude towards other people. The one thing I didn't like about this, and I'll explain what I didn't like and why it might work and why it might not work, but is the whole story about Nynaeve's mentor, the wisdom before her, how when she was 13 she went to the White Tower and they turned her away because she was poor. Now, obviously, if you read the books, it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich, it matters about your talent. So, to put this in there like that, I didn't really understand, because obviously it's not true. At least it's not true within the storyline in the books, and it's really not, should not be true as they show you in the show, because obviously Swan Sanche, she's a fisherman's daughter, and obviously really poor, lives in a hut on the river, and she's Amerlincy. So they clearly don't turn people away because they have no money in the show. So the only way this works is if her mentor, the wisdom before her, went to the White Tower and wasn't strong enough to become an Aes Sedai, and they turned her away because of that, and she came back to the village and said it was because she was poor, and that's the story that she told Nynaeve and the village folk, because she was embarrassed because she wasn't strong enough in the One Power. That's the only way this works. So I'm hoping that they address this later. If they don't, it's just poor writing, and it's just a bad narrative choice. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of these things that they use as a narrative choice in the story, they're not addressing later on. They won't address later on. Maybe they will, and it will get cut, but it leaves a lot of unanswered questions and doesn't help with the story. So after that little back and forth with Moiraine and Nynaeve, we then go into seeing the three boys, Mat, Rand, and Perrin in the morning. They're talking about what happened with Egwene. The boys offer Mat some coins that they collected so that he could buy lanterns for the girls. It's a sweet little interchange between the friends. It just, once again, shows you the friendship that these three boys have, which I think is important. I wish we had more of it. They kind of tipped our toes in it and didn't really spend time with it enough to really have you enjoy it as much as they could have. That interaction between the three boys, which I think was very important. It's very important for the rest of the story, and this was the time to really kind of do it.
Nothing. Bollocks. Something happened with the Egwene. What happened?
After that, we have a little scene with Nynaeve and Egwene on the bridge where they kind of sense something in the wind, that there's something coming, something not right that they haven't sensed before. Then we have Lan come across the feeding circle that the Trollocs have left, which is in the shape of a dragon fang, which was kind of cool. Little nod to the readers, but also kind of silly that the Trollocs would leave the bodies in that shape. I mean, the bodies look awesome with the entrails all over the place, out the skin, and it looks really cool, but it's kind of silly. But I guess it was a nod to the readers, so I can appreciate it at that, but I was like, who eats like that? But whatever. And after that, we've got Rand deciding to go back home, and with Tam, we see Moiraine kind of watching the boys. Obviously, like, are these three boys one of the people that might be the Dragon Reborn. She's unsure still. And we have Tam and Rand going back to the farm. They light a lantern for Rand's mother. They talk about how the Wheel of Time works. The people are reborn. It's a nice little exchange between Tam and Rand. It shows their relationship. Talks about how everybody is reborn in the Wheel of Time, which is nice for the world building. And then it moves to the town. It does have a lot of people putting up lanterns. That it kind of implies that, because obviously the lantern is for someone that they've lost. We have we have Egwene releasing a lantern. We have Matt giving a lantern to his parents, and they release one into the lake, which kind of implies that maybe they lost somebody, maybe another child, or I don't know, and maybe that's why they are the way they are. I don't know, it's hard to say. They don't really say. Once again, they don't really talk about it. We see Moiraine kind of looking at Egwene, once again, is that. We also see Nynaeve release a lantern, so implying, and she's crying, so that's implying that she lost somebody, perhaps the former wisdom she was close to, or maybe, as we talk about later, her parents who died. Then we move into Beltane, where everybody does some dancing, some singing, some music playing, which is really great. The whole thing looks awesome. The dancing, the music just seems just awesome. It's just all the kids are dancing. Everybody's laughing. Everybody's having a good time. What could possibly go wrong in this beautiful, beautiful night? Well, we find out what could possibly go wrong. Shortly after everybody starts having a good time and playing music and dancing, we have this nice little scene where Lan informs Moiraine that the Eyeless is there with Trolloc, and I don't know, they have this nice calm conversation out in the middle of the woods about the fact that there's imminent danger, and maybe they should do something about it, but they don't seem like in a hurry. Other than Lan says, we really need to leave. Do you know which one it is? She says that she doesn't, so obviously they're going to have to do, just take them home. Clearly. And then the attack occurs. Now, the attack is done pretty cool. How they introduced, they're dancing, and the boy that Egwene is dancing with gets hit with a spear by Trolloc. The Trollocs look amazing in this. They really did a good job. The practical effects, great. They look... Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a spear, it's an axe. Fierce, strong, menacing, animalistic. Looks really cool. But then we have a chaotic scene of everybody just scrambling, trying to get away, running away from the Trollocs. We have Perrin and his wife run to the forge. We have Matt run to some house where he finds his parents, and they don't know where the girls are. They didn't care to even keep the girls safe, and so he's forced to go back out. We have Nynaeve and Egwene trying to keep safe. Then we have Matt, who runs across the whole town to get to his sisters. Nynaeve and Egwene do what they do. They find an old man that they drag to try to heal. And initially it was supposed to be Senbui, but then they changed the name to Old Man in the IMDb, so I don't know, I guess they decided not to be at Senbui and perhaps use Senbui later when they go back to the Two Rivers. The whole fight's really cool. I mean, there's a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion as they run around, so it's really neat. They do it really well. And then from there we jump to Rand and Tam at their cabin. They hear the horse making a lot of noise outside. They hear some noise outside the door. They kind of look, see what's going on, and then in the bus, of course, as most of us know, is Narg, the narc smart Trolloc, who comes in, although he doesn't say anything about being smart, but he is wolf snouted, so he comes in, and the Rand and Tam proceed to try to fight off the Trolloc. He kind of kicks their butt for a little bit, then Tam is forced to get out his heron mark blade, which they show you that it has a heron mark, and they make a big deal about it, but then they don't mention it again at all, and so even in passing, which would have been a nice little thing, so people have an idea that the heron mark is a sword master blade, but they don't take the time to do it. I realize that I'll take a moment to talk about this. I realize that they had a limited time. Amazon said it has to be an hour, and this is your budget, and they had to make some cuts, make some changes to fit it all within that hour. And I get that. But there's so many things that they chose to leave out. Just mentioning, just taking a few moments just to mention would have alleviated a lot of confusion and given you a lot of answers. I think they fell short of the mark there. I realized that the women's circle thing was kind of important to add, that it really kind of added into the story, and was it fascinating, but it took a lot of time from episode 1 that could have also been focused on, like I said, just adding these little bits here and there that would have alleviated some confusion, would have added to the story, and would have also added to the interaction between the main characters. To spend a little more time with them as they talk with each other, and you get to know them a little bit more, which I think would have been a better use of the time. Really, honestly, the first episode should have definitely been an hour and a half, if not 2 hours, to really give us that feel for the characters and the story that we needed. But it is what it is. So I mean, while I wish they would have been better and handled, it wasn't. And I realized some of the choices they had to make were not big choices that they would want to make, but they had to. So, like I said, he gets out his heron mark blade. They fight off the Trolloc, they kill him, but Tam gets hurt. Pretty much identical to the story in the books as far as that part goes, though obviously what happens from there they don't show you. They don't only show you that Rand shows up back at the farm. They leave out the whole part where Tam has the fever dream and talks about that, basically that Rand is not his, which they then talk about in a later episode 8, I think, or 7, I can't remember offhand, but yeah, they talk about it later. So it was nice. It was part they needed to leave out because otherwise it would ruin the mystery, and so I didn't mind that they cut that out. Then we go back to the village. We see Nynaeve and Egwene being attacked by Trolloc. They show that they're fierce, and that they'll stand up for themselves as the Trolloc comes in to attack them, which was nice. That they did that. They showed that part, and Nynaeve's screaming at the Trolloc and fighting. It was nice. I like the way they did that. It was really good. And then we go into Moiraine and Lan starting to kick butt and use the one power to defeat the Trollocs. I really wish that they had chosen to do different colors for the weaves to differentiate the 5 different weaves. I get it may have been a budget thing, but to me it's such an important part of the story moving forward that I hate that they left it out, because showing the intricacies of the weaves, the different weaves that do different things, not only does it great for world building, but it will help tell the story in a way better later on when they need to use different weaves, when they talk about how, like, especially when Egwene, shows aptitude for fire and earth more than most female Aes Sedai are able to do, which obviously is an important narrative in the story because of things that happen in later books. So I really hope they take care of this in season 2. It's not too late to fix it, but it just would have been nice that they'd done it in here. I did see some graphics of how they initially showed the weaves having a faint coloring difference from the company that did the effects, which I think would have just really have added a whole other layer that probably a lot of people may not even notice at first, but it would have gotten picked up on and would have been talked about, and people would have rewatched it and they would have been like, oh my god, wow, look at that. Yeah, there's different colors. It just would have been cool, and it would have been nice, a nice thing to add, and I'm sorry that they didn't. So we have Lan and Moiraine fighting Trollocs. They work really well together. It was nice to see that they obviously have this fighting style where they clearly have done this before. They intuit each other's moves, what they're going to be doing, and they have that bond, which I think they really showed off really well. Then we move into the forge, where we have Perrin and his wife fighting off Trollocs, and obviously this is the scene where Perrin kind of goes bloodthirsty and crazy with killing a Trolloc, and then it ends up killing his wife, axing her in the stomach, and it is heartbreaking as she dies in his arms. It really kind of gets you in the gut, which, no pun intended. Okay, I'm sorry, pun intended. But it worked well within the story narrative that they gave Perrin. The scene, it played out well. He acted it well. She acted it well. I'm not really sure, but once again, as I discussed earlier, where are they going to go with this? I don't see how they can go anywhere with this, because killing your wife accidentally like that will scar you in a way that it will take more than a year to recover from. It will, and as we move the story forward, we're only looking at about a year till he meets Fail, and falls in love with her. So unless they're removing her completely from the storyline, which I'm sure there's probably those who wouldn't mind that, but unless they're removing her from the storyline, he's going to meet her and he's going to fall in love, and it's just not realistic for that to happen so quickly as it's going to in the story. So, in my opinion. So then Moiraine and Lan defeat the first Trollocs that show up there. Moiraine gets wounded, but then more Trollocs show up. Another fist of Trollocs show up, or I don't know. Quite a bit of them show up, and so she proceeds to draw on her one power for the final time, and you get to see a whole army, well, not a whole army, but a whole group of Trollocs, and they look amazing. They all look different. They all have horns in different places. They all have different snouts. Some of them look more human. Some of them look bestial. I can't say this enough. It's done really well, which is great. Unfortunately, later on, they're not done that well. So, but they did really well for episode 1. I'll give them that. Especially some of the up-close scenes look really good. So, then she proceeds to defeat the Trollocs by destroying the inn. They have a nice little scene here as the inn goes to collapse, and Lan runs over and covers Moiraine to protect her, which I think it was a nice little added thing to show you that he's always looking out for her, always concerned, always trying to keep her safe, as a warder should. So that was a nice little scene. Obviously, they defeat the Trollocs, and then we go to next morning, And Rand arrives with his father. He's on the back of, I'm guessing, Bella, most likely. And he is seeing the devastation in the town. He's just stunned and shocked. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention the point where sometimes during the fight, Nynaeve gets taken by a Trolloc, strangely. I don't know why Trolloc decided just to take her and not kill her and eat her there, but, well, I guess plot, but it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, other than they needed to separate them so that Nynaeve could follow later, I guess. And I don't know. It was a kind of a silly thing, and I don't think it made sense to do that. But like I said, I get it for the story. I guess it worked out that way. That's how they needed to do it, to get her separated from the group so that they could bring her in later. I guess it worked, but to me it just seems silly. So Rand arrives. Obviously, Tam is wounded. He's looking for Nynaeve. Finds out that Nynaeve's not there. From Egwene. And then we also see, Matt comes back with the girls, and the parents are all like, "Oh, my babies!" Like they really cared, at all, because they didn't even look for him. Matt sees Perrin coming out of the forge, carrying Lila's body. She's been cleaned up, so obviously he spent the whole night there in the forge with her, cleaning the blood from her face, which obviously is just heart-wrenching. And Matt immediately goes over to console him, which was a nice touch. It showed their compassion for each other and their caring for each other. And he's just there. And Rand, even though his dad's wounded, he can see that what happened as well. Then Moiraine comes over and heals Tam, and then
you show up.
One of the things that I don't care for in the show is how Moiraine wields the one power. I know the way she said she, was kind of almost like a dance for her, the way she moves, but like when you see her healing Tam, she's like, and it just, she cocks her head like this, like, I don't know, like she's swimming or through, I don't know, it does not look right. And if you see her in the show, how she walks, she always walks very, like, stiff, and she also keeps her hands, like jutted out from her body, like her arms are like flat against her body, but her hands are out at like a 45-degree angle, and it just, I don't know, it looks really weird. I mean, nothing against her acting, she does a great job acting as Moiraine, she's a good Moiraine, but how she poses herself visually just doesn't look well, in my opinion.
Nelly stings the next day.
They're here for the same reason as I am.
So then we have a part where Rand,
For review.
challenges Moiraine. It's, hey, you show up, and then these things show up, and this is where she tells them that they're here for one of the four of them, and she explains that one of them is the Dragon Reborn. As I mentioned earlier in the show, in the video, that I don't agree with this choice to talk about the Dragon Reborn. I think it would have been better to keep it vague that, she's here because the Dark One is after one of them, and, whatever the Dark One wants, she opposes, as she says in the books often, and that they'll keep being hunted and they need to come with her. And I think that would have worked just as well. It would have kept it a mystery. We would have talked about the Dragon Reborn. People would have heard of the dragon from the cold open if they'd used the original prologue, and some of them may have connected it to the reason why the Dark One was after one of these people. But some people may have been like, I don't understand why are they after it. It would have created more mystery. I think we actually would have done a better job of adding to the mystery of the show, in my opinion. So
20 years ago.
Here she also talks about the prophecy.
An Aes Sedai born with eyes so white she couldn't see.
I don't really get the whole blind Aes Sedai
Yet
thing.
still she saw
A
glimpses
foreteller,
of the
which is just,
Terran of
it's, I don't know, it's just a very silly cliche, but, and why they decided to do it. So they talk about the Aes Sedai's foretelling of the dragon being reborn here, but once again, I think that would have been better used later for a cold open, maybe in episode 5 or 6, which the one, I think whichever one is the one that's kind of Moiraine's episode, and they could have started it with Moiraine and Swan hearing the prophecy and making the decision to seek out the dragon, and they could have give you tidbits throughout the episodes that imply that that's actually why they're after the person, is that it's the Dragon Reborn, and I think that would have worked better.
The Dark One is waking. His whispers are already in the backs of our minds. But there will be one who can stand against him.
So here we have, she convinces them to go because there's more Trollocs coming, and that tells them that they're leaving, that they need to leave in order to keep the village safe, which I get. It shows an immediate threat and makes it a good reason for them to flee. However, as was pointed out by a lot of people, why wouldn't the Trollocs still come through the town? They don't really. It doesn't hurt them to kill the rest of the people there. So I don't think it really would have kept them safe. Their best bet would have been not to have an immediate threat that could clearly just go back into town and kill up the town and still pursue them, but kind of leave it, just convince them to leave, because the Dark Ones, and that they would come back to the village, but they need to be out, and then hopefully that would lead them away from that. I think that would have worked better. I think even for the viewers, I don't even think the viewers really needed that immediate threat, because I think a lot of viewers, I didn't talk to too many viewers about that are non-book readers, that whether or not they felt that the village would still be in danger, but I can't imagine that they wouldn't have thought it was like, I'm sure a lot of people were like, even my wife was like, but what's going to stop them from going to the village right now? Exactly. I don't know. What would stop them from going to the village right now? Now, she convinces them to go.
The wind was not the beginning.
And they do the wind, opening lines of the books about the wind. The beginning. It's not just a beginning, not the beginning, but a beginning, which was nice. It was a nice way to end it. My thoughts on the ending here. Once again, this is where it kind of needed more time to be spent. Each one of these characters needed to have a moment with their loved ones to say goodbye. Rand needed to have a moment with Tam. Egwene needed to have a moment with her parents. Matt needed to have a moment with the girls. And I don't know, Perrin could have still been in shock. So he really didn't have any, or maybe he could have said goodbye to Layla's body, and or her grave, or wherever she was at the moment, just a moment with her. They needed to have that moment of saying goodbye, of making peace with the fact that they needed to leave, and understanding to be obtained between them and their loved ones as to why they needed to leave and why it was important for them to go and for their loved ones to accept that. Since they did it in such an open manner. In the books, they flee without letting anybody know, although Tam kind of figures out from Rand. He kind of already had an idea that Rand needed to go. He figures it out, so which was nice. It was a nice little showcasing in the books about how smart Tam is. That he's able to piece that together and understands that Rand needs to go, and he's accepting of it, and he agrees with the idea. So that's a nice little thing. So, in closing, obviously, I have a lot of thoughts about the show. I know it may seem like a lot of it's negative. I did really enjoy the first episode. There were just a lot of things that I think that they failed to talk about, that they failed to address. Some of the changes with like Perrin's wife and Matt's family may work in the long run, but I don't see how they will. I think they will cause hiccups later in the storyline that they're probably just going to ignore and not address, and like I said, that's just bad story writing. I had really high hopes for the show, especially, like I said, I followed a lot of Rafe's Q&As, and I heard him talk, and I had heard that he had lots of people that were book readers on the set that were advising him, and whenever they made a decision to change something, they really, had to understand why they were making the changes. But honestly, there's a lot of changes here that not just here, but throughout the whole season, that I just don't understand why they made those choices. Some of the choices, and I'm fine with choices that are made because of budget, because of time, because certain actors couldn't be on set at certain times, especially during this first season when the pandemic hit. It really screwed up a lot of things. I'm very forgiving of that, and I try to be understanding of the choices that were made, and I can let a lot of that go. I mean, I don't need a word-for-word adaptation, but when you make changes that take away from the story, take away from the idea of the story, by not having, at least so far, I'm hoping in season 2 that they do bring this up, but having the two sides of the magic, the male and the female. I'll take a moment to talk about this, because obviously this is a very controversial topic, because obviously there's a lot of talk about gender and how there's more than male and female, and there's males who identify as females, there's females who identify as males. I don't really want to get into the political aspect of this, or even the scientific aspect of this. But if you link magic as it is to sex, as it is in the books. I mean, you can say it's gender, but you can link it to sex. You can say that if you are a male, born a male, that you are born with the male side of the one power, and if you're female, born female, and you're born with the female side of the one power, if you link it to sex, to biological sex, then you eliminate the controversy, you eliminate the political thing, which honestly, it's a fantasy series, so Robert Jordan created it as a binary magic system based on gender, sex, however you want to handle it. That's how the world is. Now, you could argue that, well, yes, this is essentially Earth in the future, way future, and obviously on Earth here we have people who are gender fluid, but it's not it's not something that you have to handle. Not something you have to address. You can just have it like that. I mean, either way, you're going to have people that are going to be upset. So you can either do it the way the author intended, which not only is what the author wanted and wished to create the world as it is, but it is also how the story works narratively throughout the whole series, and by creating this this fluid dynamic between of it being a male or a female, being that they could be born as a male or female, and not talking about the different sides of the magic because they're attached to gender, because you're worried about offending people who will argue that there's, gender fluidity. You're never going to make everybody happy. So you need, when in doubt, if you're doing adaptation, stick to what the author wanted. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. So, and like I said, you could have easily have just eliminated the controversy by attaching the magic to the biological sex of the whatever they were born as. That the magic is attached to that part of their sex when they're born. Problem solved. No confusion. No controversy. So, there you go. But as I was saying, I did enjoy the series in this season, and I have high hopes for season 2. I really had high hopes in Rafe and his ability to tell the story. I have less confidence, though, after watching the end this whole season, of his ability to tell this story in the way it needs to be told. I know, like Brandon says, well, it's just another turning of the wheel, and that's been coined by a lot of people, but that's not how the wheel turns. That's not how it works. You do not have the same people with the same names on the next turning. It's people are reborn as different people. They're not the same people. So you can't have the same people, similar circumstances, but it play out differently because this is another turning the wheel. I mean, you could have a mirror world, I guess. That would be more accurate. That people are close to, they have the same names, but the choices come out differently. Yeah, you could have that. That could work as an explanation. But like I said, when you make changes the way that they're making, and some of the changes that I see that they're making later on, I don't know, it doesn't work. So, but that's, like I said, I have high hopes for season 2, so I'm looking forward to that. So, stay tuned next time. I'm going to do episode 2 of The Wheel of Time, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you do, please like, subscribe, comment below. Tell me what you think about the series as a whole and this episode. Like I said, don't worry about spoilers. This is a spoiler-full show. And check in next week when I will do episode 2. So have a good day.